Hey guys, welcome back to Total Tactics FPL. It's Fran here and I'm back with my Gameweek 5 team selection. So last week was a relatively decent week. Unfortunately, the Salah captaincy did let us down, but I'm not really going to get my head down. I still had an overall good week. I know a lot of managers struggled this week, especially some people who even wildcarded into KDB and lost Haaland, unfortunately. And that's just really how things are. You know, Salah had a bad week and we just move on. As far as the team though, I really think this is a week where I can't see myself making any transfers. What in fact happened last week was, if you can look at my Gameweek 4 review and just simply look at the points, I moved into Duncan Rodrigo with the expectation that the transfer would actually bank out really well for me in the future. And what's happening this week is you have someone like Dunk playing versus Fulham, who is going to be a tough game. But Rodrigo, on the other hand, has Everton, Nottingham Forest in the future. So that's just going to be a great opportunity for myself to move ahead of the curve. And that's exactly why I moved into Rodrigo. If I actually waited, let's say, until tonight to make transfers, or tomorrow rather, I would have been priced out of Rodrigo. So I'm quite happy that I made the move early. And I still think he's the option that I'd like to go for because his expected minutes are still very high. And I just can't see him going haulless between the Everton, Brentford and Nottingham Forest games. I think these are great opportunities to capitalize on one of the most interesting assets in FPL who plays outside of the top 4, top 6. And someone who really has the underlying stats to prove, so far at least, that he's an interesting asset to own. And I'm very happy with the Dunk transfer because I did mention Saliba Sanchez as one of my transfer options, but overall, I think on paper going forwards, Dunk and Rodrigo could have a little bit more upside. I'm hoping that Rodrigo will get the points back that I lost between the Saliba Sanchez transfer, especially since Gabriel kind of messed up the clean sheet for Arsenal last week. If I look into the team going forwards, next week I'm actually rolling out with the same defensive lineup: Dunk versus Fulham, James versus Southampton, Cancelo versus Nottingham Forest, and Trent versus Newcastle, with Ramsdale versus Aston Villa. What I love about Ramsdale versus Aston Villa is this Aston Villa team seem very, very hapless. I think Gerrard just hasn't really found any formation specifically that he likes where they actually can create effective chances attacking wise. And it's kind of shocking that West Ham have finally found a clean sheet this season. And it kind of shows you the state of this Aston Villa team. I would say Arsenal, barring, let's say, another mistake from Gabriel, would probably find themselves with a quite easy clean sheet versus this Aston Villa team. As far as Dunk, I think it's going to be a tough game because you have Fulham at home and Mitrovic just seems like a threat that not many defenders can really deal with. Ultimately, I do like Dunk going forward, so even if he is to lose a clean sheet this week, I still much prefer him as an option than someone like Andreas or Nico Williams on paper. So I still feel like with Brighton looking so defensively formidable and posting almost top 4 defensive stats so far, that Dunk is the one to go for as a starter over Andreas. And because it's a mirror matchup, I just prefer to go with Dunk and my gut. With James in Southampton and even Trent versus Newcastle, these are both options who've been fantastic from the attacking sense, and both of these are decent fixtures when it comes to defensively. I would say with Fabinho coming back into the team and actually playing a little bit better since coming on as a sub versus United, this Liverpool team do seem a little bit reignited. Obviously, Newcastle is a very tough team to play versus. Alan Saint-Maximin is in some pretty great form, but just watching the Wolves game, I didn't really see too many threats from this Newcastle team. I do think it's going to be miss Callum Wilson, and I don't really think Isaac's going to find his way onto the score sheet versus Liverpool, if I'm being honest. As far as James for Southampton, I do think Southampton can score versus this Chelsea defense. I think there's still a few flaws. We might see Fofana actually get a start if he actually gets to be registered on time, and also if he gets a little bit training sessions with Tuchel and Koulibaly coming back, probably also allows for James to push back into right wing back or play right back again. And that's kind of why I like James so much. He was so close to getting a goal and assist last week, and Southampton's just another great opportunity for him to do that with great fixtures up until Liverpool. So he's someone who I'm not going to touch, and maybe Fofana someone I'll look at on the future. With Cancelo, I understand a lot of managers wanting to move away from him this week, but ultimately I think this is a great opportunity to actually just keep Cancelo with Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa's next 2 games, and then consider moving away from him at around the Tottenham game. The reason why is Trippier is a great option. Even Perisic could be a great option then. And I can see myself even moving laterally from Cancelo to Walker, especially if Cancelo remains to be, I guess, not as interesting as a attacking asset. His expected goal involvements have fallen off, but we have a small sample size, and it's more important to actually keep players who could have high ceilings, especially in easier games. And that's exactly what we saw with Trent versus Bournemouth. So I feel like that's exactly the logic that I'll hold whilst keeping Cancelo in my team this week. Moving on to the midfield, I have Rodrigo and Martinelli as my cheaper options. These are both fantastic assets because I think, as I said, Arsenal versus Aston Villa is such a great game on paper for Arsenal. Martinelli is someone who actually has better expected goal involvements than both Odegaard and Bukayo Saka so far. So I would say he's still the most interesting midfield asset. Potentially he's not as clinical and not as lucky potentially as Odegaard with some of the deflection goals, but he's someone who still looks interesting. He has very great minutes so far, and I think Arteta has the full confidence and faith in Martinelli for him to do well. And when we're just looking at his minutes so far, he's had 3 games where he's played 90 minutes. So I'm very, very confident about what Martinelli presents to this Arsenal team and how much faith Arteta has with him going forwards. As far as Rodrigo, The Everton fixture just seems like a brilliant game on paper. I really hope he does well here. This is exactly why I brought him in, and I'm expecting for him to get some very, very consistent points this week. With Luis Diaz and Salah, what was so lovely about the Luis Diaz game versus Bournemouth is it did really save me from a pretty hapless Salah blank with a Timo Werner-esque miss. But it basically suggests to me still that Luis Diaz is the best 8.0 mid, and there's no real reason to move away from him. Mount has continued to stink it up. Someone like Foden, Gundogan, and Bernardo, they're all going to share minutes with each other, and I still think that Haaland is the best option there. Whereas with this Liverpool team, there is a lot more, I would say, point spreading. I think with the City team, you have much more guarantees of the points coming from the premiums, whereas with Liverpool, you're almost seeing now, especially with Salah not being in the best of, I would say, pure attacking form, that Luis Diaz and even assets like Darwin, who could come back in the next fixture, just be as equally interesting as Salah, or even Trent, as an example. With Salah, I think the big question this week is whether I would stick the armband on him. And when I'm showing my forwards, it's going to be Haaland and Jesus. So I would say the question is really, do we think Haaland's going to get anything more than something like 60 minutes this game, or is he going to get something like 30 minutes? I would say if I had more news based on Pep's press conferences and whether he's going to start versus Nottingham Forest, I would definitely move towards a Haaland captaincy with a Salah vice captain. But if I'm getting more the feeling or the gut feeling that Haaland's going to play something like 25 to 30 minutes, I probably think I'd stick the armband on someone like Salah, or to be completely honest, Jesus, because Aston Villa really look like a terrible team. And we know West Ham have been also a pretty poor side so far. I don't think the changes where, Scamacca started or even Emerson started made a huge difference in that Aston Villa game. Ultimately, I do think that those two teams are one of the weaker attacking teams in the league, and it's really positive that you have an Arsenal team that are still firing on all cylinders, for all intents and purposes, playing versus such a weak team in Aston Villa. And I think that's a great opportunity to potentially even move the captaincy to Jesus, where we know a lot more about his minutes and potentially don't have to gamble the minutes with Haaland, and he's simply more informed than, I would say, someone like Salah. Just when it comes, not necessarily when it comes to the expected stats, because I think Salah still ranks quite well there, and he did obviously have a great game versus Bournemouth where he missed a tap in. But just in terms of pure form and just the eye test, I would say Jesus might be the most interesting differential for the captaincy. And my bench is obviously going to be just Andreas, Nico Williams, and Archer in that order. If you are someone who actually has 2 free transfers this week and you know exactly not what to do with your transfers, I think the simple transfer is just to go from Archer to Stansfield. But that's going to be it. And that's going to be my team selection for this week. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.